All right, everyone. Had to clear up some space on the StreamYard account, but we are locked and loaded. I'm hanging out here, as you can see in the backdrop, I think that's North End. I don't know if that's the North End zone or the East Stands. We have the man, the myth, the Matej hanging out in a fancy living room. Matej, how's the piano game lately? You've been stroking the ivory, as they say.
Yeah, just with all the recruiting news, business is booming at VT Scoop. I just want to thank Evan for getting me this luxury villa in Pasadena, but enjoying my time here. Didn't know the cameras would be on. I normally wouldn't show off like this.
Very kind of you, Matej. Well, we are back. It's that time again for that. We'll call it the annual, sometimes the semi-annual. I know we do this twice a year usually. Interview with Matej Sis from 24/7 Sports VT Scoop. Make sure you subscribe. I know Matej's going to plug what promo they got going on at the end of the show. But Matej, how you doing, my friend? How's everything going?
Everything's great. Just got back from vacation. Was in Europe for 2 weeks, and even though it was vacation, we did have 10 commitments during the 14 days I was gone. So it didn't feel like much of a vacation, but it's good to be back. We got the jerseys that just dropped. Bud Foster on the video. I'm ready for the season.
I was going to say, we'll kick things off here with a Hokie haiku from Pennsylvania Hokie. Prize steals from Penn State, Clatterbaugh and Overton, huge recruiting wins. And on that note, I know we have recruiting to talk about, but you did allude to it a little bit here, Matej. You're on vacay, checking out London and Paris and other cool places across the pond. But two things are pretty serious right now: the uniforms, and I'm not going to call it NCAA football. It's actually called college football 25. No name recognition is needed for that horrible entity, but we'll be chatting through college football 25. But first of all, what do you think of the uniforms? The Bud video you mentioned was pretty iconic. You open up your Instagram, you hear Bud talking, oh shoot, I need to lock in for the next 70 seconds of this video.
Yeah, I mean, I was absolutely ready to run through a wall after hearing Bud Foster narrate that. Great video, great reveal. It's unfortunate that, the jerseys got spoiled before we got to, like, if we were just hit with that Bud video on Friday, like it was supposed to be, that would have been great. But I think, all things considered, the jerseys look amazing. I think they're simple in nature, but enough of a change from the previous ones. Really like the attention to detail with the Hokie Stone, a great callback to the 1999 jerseys. And, I've been saying this a lot, but it just feels like, all the fans loved it. It represents what, Coach Pry wants for this program, the vision for this program, mixing the history with a modern element to it. And the recognition across the country was great. Like, Virginia Tech feels so cool right now, and it's just really cool to see that. You're on mute, Mr. Patrick.
Wow. Error. It must be getting late. So my first thoughts seeing these uniforms is, okay, we got the all maroon. We got the all white. What else is on the table? This is where we're gonna lock you in here, Matej, and we're gonna say, okay, I don't have the game yet, so I am not in the game like EA Sports, but you have been playing some NCAA or college football. I have it written down as NCAA. Tough look. College football 25. Can you tell us about any orange that is in the game? Can you tell us about any potential surprises beyond what we see in the all white and the all maroon from the uniform reveal video?
One of the first things that I did actually was, once I loaded into the game, I immediately went to the jerseys. And Virginia Tech is one step ahead. They only have the maroon and the white jerseys, the maroon and the white helmets. I'm sure there will be some updates throughout the year where they can implement, jersey modifications. But I think, like, unlike the jersey reveal being spoiled by the EA guy that streamed it a couple days early, I think we won't know until week of whether it's the Orange Effect game, military appreciation. I'm really excited to see what Virginia Tech has up their sleeves because they're definitely cooking behind the scenes.
I did see a few scenes from the game that it has been fun seeing folks post out on the internet like their gameplay. They're like, "Hey, I'm playing Bama and it's snowing in Lane Stadium. This is cool." Or I think it was Vatek Edits put out. No, it wasn't him. It was someone else who put out a video. It was just like drones hitting Felton Deep. It just said like this looks so similar, and it does. But I know in some of those videos, I did see some orange. Are those orange uniforms from the past? Like, how far back does it go into the past with uniforms? Like, can you wear the Boise State All Blacks in this game? Can you wear the white Nike Pro Combats from 2009? Or are we just working with like our current and most recent previous sets?
Yeah, so I've only seen the ones that have been implemented, as of this coming season that Virginia Tech has submitted. I haven't seen all the alterations, but again, I think there's going to be plenty of updates to kind of get those jersey modifiers in. I think a lot of the teams in the game right now have pretty basic sets. There are a few programs, I think, if you scroll through Twitter, that some people will tell you which schools to pick based on how many jersey options they have, but certainly I think Virginia Tech will get a nice refresh the next update.
It's funny too. I never really thought about this until now, but how much a jersey rebrand or a jersey refresh can benefit NIL for athletes who are on the team. Fanatics is probably going to have a few athletes to choose from, or some other sources are probably going to have a few athletes to choose from, if you wanted to buy their jersey. I know my guy, Johnny Morse, was texting me, "Hey man, when are Fanatics going to have these?" And I think they're going to sell incredibly well, and I'm looking forward to that. So pretty cool. One last note on the jerseys before we'll do some college football rapid fire for you, Matej. But when I see the 25 in all maroon, I just think like Kevin Jones against Boston College, or Kevin Jones against Miami in the all maroon, or I think it was the A&M game in Hurricane Isabel, where we just had head to toe maroon. Just the way the 25 lays out and the orange numbers on the shoulders, it just looks very, very similar. And that was a great era of Virginia Tech football. So pretty fired up about it. I hope they sell jerseys in both colors too.
Oh yeah.
Really hoping for a large gamut of opportunities with Nike. So awesome. All right, so we're gonna roll into college football rapid fire before we tackle some recruiting stuff. Right? I know you've been playing. I know did the unboxing and have been coaching up in Happy. It sounded like it was Happy Valley today. Was it Happy Valley? Where did your travels take you on the recruiting trail and around? It sounds like the Mid Atlantic or Northeast region.
I'll just give you a quick recap. I chose UConn as my program to rebuild. Right. I want to get the Northeast going. Year 1, 10-2, pretty good. My recruiting efforts were horrible. I got 6 high school recruits, but I hit the transfer portal hard and got 12 guys out of the transfer portal, which is pretty crazy in a video game to even be able to do that. But I realized that I cakewalked through the first season and I wanted to set things up for year 2. So I was going through the list of the toughest places to play, and it was like Alabama 1, LSU 2, I believe. Or no, A&M was 1. But I got to the first game of the season just like an hour ago in year 2. Scheduled it against Penn State, and that place is impossible to play. I'm not proud of saying this, but I restarted the game at least 5 times because like you literally cannot play. Like it is that loud in there in the video game. So they're no joke. That list is no joke. Like it is really tough to play.
So you're playing on sick. It sounds like that's the portal. 12 guys in the portal. Sounds like you had a Dion or remind me, the TCU head coach. You hit the portal hard. You're probably making a positive impact there, Matej. So Proud of your efforts in the portal. Now tell me about, is there any nuances in the game that are like really funny and unique to how it is today? Like, I know I saw on Twitter earlier about like how a recruit or a player can like DM like a girl or something to hang out. Like, which it
I
just
don't know
sounds
if that's true. I think that's
okay.
like an
Was
edited.
that just an edited meme? Because I saw it was like, hey, I know you from class. Do you want to hang out? And the girl blocked him. That was totally fake and not actually in the game.
Yes. You can send DMs to players, but it's like very generic. Um, yeah, I mean, that's one of the nuances, the new recruiting. They finally implemented an RPO into the game, like multiple plays you can RPO, which is pretty cool. The music selection very much represents what we hear in actual stadiums. So I know they didn't get all the rights for, all the music. And I know I've joked around with you before that like 2012 must have been a hell of a year because every stadium still uses music from 2012 on third downs and whatnot. So very much represented in the game. But yeah, it's an amazing game. I've been grinding it out for the past couple days. Never gonna get sick of it.
Yeah, this is the Super Bowl moment for most males out there who have ever picked up a football or picked up a controller. My last question about kind of nuances in the game: can you tweet a dancing Hokie bird gif at a recruit?
I haven't seen that yet. I might be missing out on all this, by the way. Like I have not seen the actual DMs or whatnot. I'm assuming all of that is a joke and people are editing that, but I need to look more into recruiting because that's my bread and butter as I'm trying to rebuild this program.
You got to compete with Penn State. You got to compete with Pittsburgh. Who else is up there? Boston College and
Rutgers.
Rutgers are friends down in Piscataway. Well, that's awesome. All right, I got a couple more rapid fire college football EA Sports. Biggest cheat code in EA Sports NCAA football history.
Biggest cheat code in history.
Like
I know.
your Mike Vick of Madden, but for NCAA.
Yeah, I'm trying to think because I played so much NCAA 2014. Um, I mean, Logan Thomas was pretty good in that game. You could just barrel over people, just run read options over and over. I know that people have been posting that there's a South Carolina wide receiver who's like 6'5" and 230 and just has 99 speed. And they're saying he's the cheat code in this game, like he's unstoppable. I haven't tested that out yet, but certainly there's some things in this game where, some recruits are getting rated above 99. So I think there's some bugs and whatnot that people are starting to figure out.
The bugs are pretty hilarious. I saw one of like the LSU defense was getting fired up, like doing a swag surf in a huddle, and they had a player of the opposition in the huddle, like dancing with them. And the caption was like, "Bro, get the hell back over here."
That's so funny.
Yeah. All right. And what at this point, from your experience, if you played with Virginia Tech, who's the fastest Virginia Tech player in the game? Because sometimes they have the ratings, but like Kenny Lofton in backyard baseball was probably the same speed as Derek Jeter, but Kenny Lofton was like 10 times faster. So like, what is the from your experience playing the game, who's the fastest player?
I think Jalen Lane. Oftentimes, I'm finding myself, I'm running slants and then just sending him on a vertical. And depends on the difficulty you're playing with. I started on All American. I had to bump down a little bit after throwing 7 interceptions in my first game. But he was just torching every defense. I will say I was expecting Daquan Felton to be a lot faster than he ended up being. And I think he has like 88 speed or something. And that should be well over 90, just in my opinion. So, again, I know I talked about it with the jerseys, like how they'll probably import some more things as the season progresses. But they needed to do like a rating refresh on some of these Hokies.
So, what would you say is the coolest tradition featured in the game that you've stumbled upon thus far?
I mean, Enter Sandman's pretty cool, even though it's like a slightly altered version of Enter Sandman. That's been pretty surreal for me. Obviously, I talked about restarting and going through the Penn State intro at least 7 times today. So that one's kind of burned into my brain. But yeah, there's a lot of cool traditions. I didn't get to see a lot of them with UConn, to be honest with you, playing UAB, FCS West, and whatnot. But I'm excited to discover some of the bigger ones in year two.
I remember being a kid playing the game. I had 2003 and I had 2004. Like that was the earliest rendition of the game that I had. 2003, I think it had Joey Harrington on the cover. And it's so funny you mentioned FCS West because like when I was like, 8 years old and like FCS West would be on the calendar, I just like really just didn't understand it. What is that? Who is that? I'm trying to learn here about some of these collegiate programs, and I have no idea what FCS West is. But yeah, I'm looking forward to playing. I don't know. I don't have any gaming console, but I do have a buddy who just got it, so I'm assuming that over the next week or two, I'll probably make my way over to his house down here in Charlotte and roll over and play with Casey. But all right. Any last things that you wanted to say about the video game before we talk about the meat and potatoes of the pod here, recruiting in the 25 class?
Let's get into the meat and potatoes.
Meat and potatoes. All right. Storylines thus far. So we have 11 guys in the boat from Virginia, 15 guys in the boat overall from the 2025 class. Pretty excited about the 2025 class. Knowing that it's 25, like you gotta stamp it as something that's going to be special with the significance of that number. But the two highest guys ranked in the class committed in the month of July. The first one, Matthew Outen out of Portsmouth, Virginia. He's a wide receiver, 6 foot, 200 pounds, 92 overall. He's the 5th ranked at his position and the 6th ranked in the state. Fired up about him and fired up about Micah Matthews, who is the top recruit in the state right now. He's actually coming on the show tomorrow, so we'll get a first look at him. I know I saw him in Colby, had a Colby Crawford from 24/7 Sports, VT Scoop, had a great interview with him on commitment day in person, where he seems like an extremely charismatic young man who is not only going to make an impact on the gridiron, but he's also a top 100 baseball recruit as well. So he'll be doing the chef prize special here. But he is the highest guy in the class. 4-star athlete, 92 overall, 6'2", 205 out of Bridgewater, Virginia. That's Turner Ashby High School. So significant news there. Were you home from vacation when these guys committed, Matej? Or were you still celebrating the 4th of July abroad?
Yeah, so it was actually my last day that Matt Outen committed to Virginia Tech. So covered that one in Paris, which was interesting. But Micah Matthews, I was back for. I was fully recovered from jet lag. But I think the cool thing about these guys is they're both listed as athletes. Like they can play multiple positions on offense. When you look at them, their versatility in their film is unparalleled. Micah Matthews compares himself to Deebo Samuel, the way that he's able to run the ball, be in multiple different spots on the offense, and really impact the game. But it's amazing to see that even though both these guys are the number 4 and number 5 athletes nationally, like they are the number 1 and number 2 wide receivers in Virginia. And it's the second year in a row that Fontel Mines and company have landed the number 1 and number 2. Last year it was Brody Adams, Chance Wiggins. So this wide receiver group is really just on the up and up. These two guys are just incredible. Micah Matthews, I think, his ability he could be an outside guy or inside guy. There was a big battle with UNC, as you mentioned. He's a top 60 MLB prospect, just an unbelievable athlete. Like most of the guys on the commitment list play so many sports in high school, but to be truly elite, and he has an outlook, whether it's potentially the NFL. That's kind of what a 4-star means on 24/7, but also an outlook in the MLB. Like that's pretty insane to put that into perspective. And then Auden being able to, beat out Penn State. He just had an official visit, loved it, came out of that visit uncommitted. The next weekend comes to Virginia Tech, and Brent Pry and company are able to land his services. So just an amazing job to be able to land those two guys. They're hugely significant for this class, and just you got to be so excited about the wide receiver room in the coming years.
Yeah, Micah Matthews, you mentioned North Carolina also had offers from Utah and BYU, and then NC State, Rutgers, West Virginia, Clemson, Penn State, South Carolina, and of course, Virginia as well. And then as far as Matthew Outen goes, his offer list was Penn State, Maryland, Syracuse, and Charlotte were some of the top offers he had, as well as it looks like Georgia, South Carolina, Temple, Tennessee, and Indiana. So some other storylines here from this class. We mentioned Virginia a little bit, but our top 8 recruits are all Virginia kids. 3 out of the top 11 guys in the state of Virginia we have secured so far, all 4 stars. So that's the 2 that we just mentioned, and then Brett Clatterbaugh, inside linebacker. We also have 3 recruits from Green Run, which I found pretty interesting. I know Keelan Adams was one of the first guys we got from Green Run in a while, and obviously he has a lot of influence considering we got 3 more guys in the boat from Green Run. Any other insights on Green Run as far as had we gotten guys from there before, or is this mainly like the Keelan Adams effect? What are your thoughts on the whole Green Run thing as we do some more damage in the 757?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly been something that, has transpired recently. I think it had been tough to get into that school beforehand. A lot of SEC schools were getting in there, and Virginia Tech really wasn't getting the time of day. But, Brody Adams was a huge one last cycle. He kind of opened the door for, the top end guys from Green Run to be able to consider Virginia Tech. Like that was such a big commitment in so many ways. And then, there was Knowledge Harrell, Jay Anderson. They both committed at the same time. They were commits number 2 and 3 on the same day. They both did their commitment videos at the same time. Knowledge Harrell is, he's a cheetah guy, just a really good cornerback, room to build there. And then Jay Anderson, I think, is slightly underrated. I think he could be a 4-star, just a lot of speed, really good wide receiver. Like I know that a lot of the attention will go to, Micah Matthews, Matt Auden, but Jay Anderson is right up with them. Like he is a very, very good prospect. So those 2 were huge. And then like you look at Zeke, he just transferred there. So he'll play his first season next year. He comes over from Oscar Smith. So staying in the 757, but a 6'6", 240-pound edge rusher, just like collegiate size, NFL size, to be honest with you. And like still has room to grow into his body. And really, once he hits the collegiate weight room, could become an absolute monster. And there is a 2026 offensive tackle, a 4-star guy, Thomas Wilder, for next cycle that's there. So Zeke will get some good practice against him every day in practice. And I'm excited to see his development senior season.
You're speaking of size, Matej. There's also a big dude from right down the road. You could go to Pizza Inn, you could go to Dude's Drive-In, or you could go to the IHOP. But Carter Stallard from Christiansburg, Virginia, Christiansburg High School, 6'7.5", 315. Tell me a little bit about this guy. He's an 87er overall per 24/7.
Yeah, he's an absolutely awesome kid. He was also one of the earlier commitments of this class. I always joke around and say that he's going to break the all-time unofficial visit record. Yes, he's just down the road, but he's been to Tech over 50 times. Like at the very beginning of this process and getting to know him, and seeing how often he visited and had things to say about Virginia Tech, I was like, this is such a layup. I just wonder when he's going to commit. So that was a pretty cool moment to see him be able to do that. I know he's been training with Sergio Render a little bit, fishing with him as well. So, he just gets exactly what Virginia Tech is all about. Absolute colossal of a human being. A guy that has really good footwork for his size. Like, I've been really impressed by his flexibility, his ability to bend. I think it might take him a couple years to see the field, but an absolute unit and a guy that can really move. So once he's able to put that together with the technique, I think he can do big things at Virginia Tech.
Special to see a guy from Christiansburg stood up in the orange maroon. Excited about him. And then, what are some other storylines of the class? I know we've been talking about Virginia. We've been talking about talented wide receivers. We've been talking about green run. But any other storylines here that you think are worth giving some airtime?
A couple of them, I would say Jeff Overton, running back, Hayfield. He's a guy that, absolutely popped off last year. Gatorade Football Player of the Year, 2,700 yards, 40 plus touchdowns, like had a lot of high quality offers. He's only rated an 87, which is probably the biggest travesty of all the ratings here. But like, this is a guy that if you take the rankings away, like, he is near the top of the board. Like, this is a guy that you cannot lose. He is such a huge prospect. And Virginia Tech was able to roll out the red carpet for him, land him. That's one of the ones that you can't lose, and they didn't. And you got to give a lot of credit to the staff for that. I think the other storyline is probably AJ Brand, the second quarterback of the class. I think for those who have been following VT Scoop for a while, there was a lot of smoke around a guy named Malik Washington, a 4-star quarterback out of Maryland, ended up choosing Maryland. But, AJ Brand is another guy that, had just shy of 3,000 passing yards, 45 touchdowns in the air, 1,100 rushing yards, like video game numbers I'm talking about. And he just represented what Tyler Bowen wants out of a quarterback. And he does have a little bit of a funky motion when it comes to throwing, but the guy can play. And they won the state championship. I believe they went undefeated in doing so, but he is just an absolute gamer, another team captain, which the staff loves. And I think when you're comparing a guy like that, and yes, he's only an 86, and you compare him against Malik Washington, who's a 4-star guy, the staff said we need a second quarterback, and this guy really fits with what we want to do. We're going to go all in for him. So they made that decision to go all in on AJ Brand. They were able to beat out South Carolina. That's probably the last storyline. Just, over the years, you've probably seen Penn State, Florida State, Clemson come into Virginia and land recruits. But recently it's been a battle against South Carolina, and AJ Brand was a huge one. They wanted to take him as a defensive back. Virginia Tech said, we want you as a quarterback. They were able to, get him at his preferred position. And, it's been a battle against Shane Beamer, Torian Gray. There's still some ongoing battles in this class, but that's been something to watch.
I saw with Jeff Overton's commitment, there was what insights can you tell us on this, if you can, or if you know? A lot of cool vehicles are just on campus at the 50-yard line in Lane Stadium, on the practice field. You got these like big orange like motorcycles. You got these, I'm not a car guy, but you got some fancy looking cars parked at midfield of the football stadium. Do you have any idea of any of the insights into how these vehicles are brought in and and done in these photo shoots?
It's such a funny question because, yes, Jeff Overton, I saved the red carpet, but he had the white Rolls Royce. I mean, I don't know where it's coming from. It's funny that you mentioned it because when I see these photos, it's definitely the first thing I notice. And I'm like, that looks interesting. But then it just kind of, my mindset just stops there. And, Yeah, I'd really like to know. I know Keldon Ryan got some photos that same weekend with the white Rolls Royce. So don't know where they're coming from. Definitely some rentals, but hey, keep them coming because the recruits love it.
Ain't that the truth? Want to know a little bit more about kind of either current state or looking forward, but what do you think has been Virginia Tech's biggest challenge so far in this 25 cycle?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely been some misses at the top of the board in terms of some of the Virginia talent. I mean, you look at the top 10 for Virginia, most of the guys are, committed elsewhere. There's a lot of other programs like Clemson did a really good job in Virginia. I think that it's been a more challenging time in terms of some guys who are, high four stars. They're getting attention from every, big Power Five program in the country. There's been a lot more talk around NIL. And I think that, this staff has done a really good job at prioritizing guys that kind of align to their vision. And they've also made some tough calls to say, look, this is a guy that we circled on 24/7. He's a 4 star, but it's just we don't align in terms of what we're looking for. And I think they've had to make a lot of tough calls that way. I would say as things have turned out, it's actually been a very successful cycle in terms of the guys that they really wanted. But certainly getting into those conversations, it's really tough to open up a recruitment. You've been talking to these guys for 3+ years, and when it comes to that moment, you just don't see eye to eye on certain things. Like that gets really tough to just call it quits. So I would definitely say that added element of it has been challenging, but certainly they've been tackling those obstacles well.
Want to know, when you were speaking with recruits, how many kids reference NIL as a significant difference maker in their recruitment?
Yeah, so I would say what's interesting about Virginia Tech, and I talked to a lot of other people at a lot of other sites, and I would say there's definitely more chatter at other sites about NIL playing a huge role. With Virginia Tech, it's never the number one thing for a lot of these guys. Like they are always talking about how it feels like home, how the staff, makes them feel like family, about how hard they're going to have to work and earn every rep that's coming their way. But I think what Virginia Tech does really good is they're kind of weeding out guys that are just chasing the bags. They're using it as, you can come here, have all these great things, and get paid while doing it. And I think it's an added bonus, but by no means is it, the number one thing that recruits talk about. I think they're really it's more of a traditional approach when it comes to Virginia Tech. And we talked about the jerseys, like they they really want to make this like that 1999 feel. And yes, add in those modern elements to the jerseys or the recruiting with NIL, but it's kind of like the cherry on top with a lot of these recruits.
Last question before we go into the letters from the lunch pail. So moving forward, we got 15 guys in the boat. Where would you say should be the biggest positions of need moving forward, and any targets that you think we should keep our eye on that can help fill those gaps in the positions of need?
Yeah, I think, they've done a good job addressing the defensive line so far. I think they can add another guy there. The offense is pretty much figured out. Certainly, they can look at some other offensive line prospects. I think a lot of the really top end guys are committed elsewhere. They have two right now, but they're going to be looking at, mostly in the secondary. There's a guy named Kendall Daniels. Currently a huge battle with South Carolina and Virginia Tech. He's a 4 star guy, 6'3", 210. He's been a heavy lean, reportedly, to South Carolina for a while now, but he still remains uncommitted. He's listening to Virginia Tech. Clemson's also in the mix there. Again, like I talked about, just a lot of battles with South Carolina right now. But 4 star guy, your prototypical rover type player, hard hitter in the open field. Virginia Tech would love to have a guy like him. we'll see what happens with him, because as much smoke as we're hearing about South Carolina, again, he's very much involved with Virginia Tech, really likes the program. So that one will be interesting to watch. The next, Messiah Delhomme, Warwick guy, Michael Vick's high school. Again, another 4-star guy, top 5 player in the state of Virginia. He did suffer a leg injury. Not sure the extent to where that will keep him out for his senior season. I do expect him to come back at some point. Ohio State is very much in the mix for him. They also have Fahim Delane, brother of Mansour Delane, a 5-star guy. A lot of people will say, look, Ohio State has 3 safeties committed to them, 2 cornerbacks. They can't take him, but they would 100% take him. He's a certified baller. Virginia Tech would love to have him. He would become the top guy in this class if he were to commit. Really, really good safety prospect. More of a free safety guy, but certainly those are the 2 that are like your dream pairs for the secondary. And then the last guy I would say is Jan Kamaju. He's a 6'3" edge. They already have 3 guys on the defensive line, 2 edge rushers. He has a 4.2 GPA. He's a very, very smart kid, wants to major in engineering, which heavily works in favor of Virginia Tech. He's driven by his academics more than where he's going to play for football. So I think Virginia Tech has a very attractive package for him. He's someone that, I feel very good about, but certainly will still be a battle. And all 3 of these guys, I think, will probably wait it out a bit longer. Early August or to mid-August is probably the timelines for a lot of these guys. But certainly with the 15 guys we've seen commit so far, Virginia Tech has 95% of their class done so far.
Excited to see how it rounds out for sure. So we're going to rock and roll into the letters from the lunch pail here. I have a decent amount of letters here for you, Matej, but we can buzz through them. So the first one comes from Dominic Brzezina. What has Coach Pry been using as a selling point to players to pick Tech over other schools? I know we talked about, home and relationships, but I guess what is the X factor that you kind of are getting from every single recruit that you talk to?
Yeah, I think what's been different is, he's always preached about wanting to keep Virginia kids home, making sure that Virginia Tech stays the flagship program. But I think what's really helped, and you've seen a lot of these commitments come in the past couple of weeks. Ironically, all of them have had their official visits in the past couple of weeks. He's bringing a large group of these guys together, the elite guys in Virginia. And when you look around the room, when they're on their official visit, they're able to see all the top guys in state that they hear about, that they read about in the newspapers, if they still print those out, or on Twitter. But they are all together and, kind of creating that culture of, we want to bring this program back with guys in state, and then being able to display that to recruits, being able to, have the guys that are already in the boat, a guy like Brett Clatterbaugh, like being able to recruit guys while they're on campus. So it's just been a huge effort. I think everything's been super calculated when it comes to Virginia. Like, that's what the formula is for the staff. They want to build the base on 15 to 20 players, 80+% of them coming from Virginia, get another 5 transfers every year, and really build it that way, so that in a couple of years, 80% of this roster is going to be Virginia homegrown talent. And then you have those guys like your Kyron Drones, your Ollie Jennings, guys that you're taking out of the transfer portal, no matter how you know them from previous stops. So that's really been what the formula is. But I think they've just done a really good job at, showing that Virginia Tech is where elite Virginia talent needs to be.
Coming from Steve Upton, we already talked about Green Run, but exclusive of Green Run, what are the up-and-coming schools in Virginia talent-wise? Have you seen a shift in the landscape at all for where talent is heavy in one area and then it's kind of moving and being diffused throughout the state? Any other schools that kind of just come to mind immediately of, hey, yeah, we're getting a lot of guys out of here. There's some real talent in this pocket?
I don't know if it's specific schools within Virginia. Richmond's been a heavy area. I think they've gotten back into Nova recently. Like you think about Stonebridge with Christian Evans. I think Woodbury Forest, although not a Nova, but they weren't able. That has been forever a UVA feeder school, and to be able to get a guy like Sheldon Robinson out of there, like they've kind of sprinkled throughout Virginia for this cycle. I know there's 3 guys now from Green Run, but they've really gone all over the state to find people. I don't know if there's specific pipelines. Green Run would obviously be awesome. I think that's becoming one of those bigger programs. Just they've been getting so many transfers. Um, but just in general, I think they've done a much better job in Nova. Richmond has been a very hot pipeline. There's numerous schools there. And then obviously 757, they're building back those connections and really reaping the benefits from it.
I like this one from Steve Upton. What impact, if any, has the preseason hype impacted recruiting? Or is it mainly relationships and hard work that, are drawing these folks to Virginia Tech? Because there's been, it seems like every day Josh Pate is talking about Virginia Tech.
Yeah.
Big Game Boomer is putting out something about Virginia Tech. All these, manufactured Instagram like CFB alerts or, just random, could be a high schooler behind the account is ranking Virginia Tech high in preseason. And obviously Sons of Saturday is retweeting.
Oh, yeah.
We love the engagement. How much of that impact has gone into recruiting?
Yeah, there's always been kind of that vibe with this staff in particular that Virginia Tech is cool again. And I don't think it was necessarily displayed as much as it has been this offseason. Like the recruits definitely had that vibe last year. I was talking about it the other night, but you think about how Virginia Tech started 2023 and what the timeline was saying about the results on the field and meanwhile, all the guys are still committed because they truly believed in the staff. And it's kind of the same thing here. All the hype and all of that certainly helps with these recruits, being able to go on these visits and maybe know like what the jerseys will look like when they're there, or, to have the Rolls Royce wherever it's coming from. There's definitely a lot of cool things about the program and those modern elements that I kind of talked about earlier. It's definitely helping, but all these guys are really about the hard work and really earning their reps. And, it's the culture that's been driven more than anything, and making that cool, making it cool to be a blue collar guy that needs to work for everything, to work hard and earn your spot. Or like you look at some of the guys that are on the roster, like Brody Adams and Chance Wiggins, like they know they're going to have to redshirt this year. Name me like 10 other 4-star wide receivers that are the best of the best in the class across the country that are willing to, sit out and have a redshirt season. Like they knew what the plan was, and they know that they need to work hard and their time is coming. And being able to, really buy into that, that's kind of the mindset for a lot of these guys. Like they know how good they are, but they know they're going to have to work that much harder once they get to college.
So here's one that might be a little controversial, but we love the controversial questions from Grady Baker.
Let's see.
Virginia Tech fans obsess over Virginia recruiting when data shows that overall high school talent here is inferior to nearby states, such as Maryland, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia. Any thoughts on that statement?
I certainly agree with Georgia. North Carolina has been good for a long time. I think the problem with Virginia is you look back 5-6 years ago, and programs like Ocean Lakes, Oscar Smith, they were producing some of the top talent in state. And year after year, I think we've seen some guys that were overhyped and under-delivered at the collegiate level. Some guys that went to Florida State, UNC. And I think that there was a lot of bargaining from Virginia a while ago about, getting these guys rated so highly. And it's kind of left a bad taste in the mouth of a lot of talent evaluators. So I would say that Virginia talent isn't too inferior compared to North Carolina and Maryland. I think it's on par, if not better. from what I've seen. I think they're still going through a bit of a rebranding process. A lot of schools are kind of changing over, and kind of building themselves up into the premier high school programs, especially in the 757, where we've seen a lot of changes. But overall, I would say the talent is very good. I think it's underrated right now, but definitely in 6 years ago it was extremely overrated, and now things are kind of evening out. So I think in the coming cycles you're going to see a lot more talent come out of Virginia, especially the talent that is rated as highly as those other states.
I think it's a really fair assessment. I remember talking about like the 2020 class, for example, which was just extremely weak in Virginia. A couple of classes a year before and a year after uh, that 2020 class were just very, very weak. And I think there were only one or two guys from the whole top 20 that even sniffed an NFL roster, and they were Tenuta and James Mitchell. So yeah, that's a good response, Matej. And I too am looking forward to this rebrand of Virginia. And I think we are playing a huge part in that, because every single Virginia kid is gonna want to grow up and be able to play in Blacksburg. All right, his last question from Grady Baker: do recruits care about uniforms, or is this just a fanboy thing?
I feel like they definitely care about uniforms. I mean, the photo shoots have absolutely taken over the past couple of years. Recruits care about it. I think they care about knowing the other details. I mean, they're probably privy to whatever jerseys we might unveil later on in the season, but certainly they care.
All right, Logan Ross, what has stuck out most to you about the kind of guys Brent Pry and his staff are recruiting?
Again, it kind of goes back to like those blue collar, they're not just chasing the NIL money, they're here to work hard. Like, I find it very fascinating how they're able to identify guys. Like, you have to think recruiting isn't just one cycle. Like, these guys were identified like before Brent Pry even got his foot in the door. Like, he's going through connections, he's talking to coaches. Like, there are guys on staff that have maintained these relationships for a very long time. So early on, they're able to know the character of these guys, see it grow year after year, see these guys mature over time, and they're able to really decipher, okay, is this guy all about the show or is he about the work? And I think they've done a good job, especially in the last two cycles, of finding guys that really identify with the culture and working on them. And I think they've done a really good job of being able to convert those guys to commit to Virginia Tech.
Sorry, my last question here. We're done from the pail, but I will throw in one at the very end here. If you could put stock in one player in this class so far, if you want to put the Matej stamp of approval, the guy that you are looking forward to watching from whether it's enrolling early or redshirt year all the way to draft day, who is that guy?
Oof. There's I can give you two. I gotta go with Jeff Overton. He's my personal favorite player in the class right now. I just think he's so dynamic. I think he's insanely underrated. Even if you go to 24/7, you look up his profile, like, toss that aside, go check the tape, watch him play, watch his highlights for 2 minutes. He'll absolutely blow you away. I think he's a surefire guy that like will be so good. And then the other one is Zeke Chinwiki. Like, he's the lowest rated guy, but at 6'6", 240, green run guy as of next year, or I guess as of right now, he's in off-season training. But he's just, you can't teach that size. And I think he is very raw right now. I think he is the lowest rated because what he's shown on the football field. But I think if this offseason is any indication, he's just going to come out a new monster for a senior season. And I can't wait to see what kind of trajectory he has in the rankings, because I really think he can blow all the way up this list. And he's someone that right now has NFL size and potential. And yes, he's very raw. But once he refines his skills and, the coaches are betting on themselves to be able to teach the technique and really get him going, I think he could be an absolute stud.
Love the size of him and our Christiansburg friend as well. And then with that Jeff Overton highlight tape. I'm expecting levels of J.C. Coleman's tape back in 2012 or whenever it was with the speakers going hammer, Soldier Boy
Oh yeah.
soundtrack. If you know, you know. Matej, this is always a ton of fun. We love having you on. Thanks for hopping on with us. Last opportunity here for you. Sharky shout outs time. What do we got going on in the world of Matej Sis? Anything that you want to plug or anything that you guys want to put out there? Now you have the spotlight, my friend.
Yeah, I'll say come check out VT Scoop. If you guys want to just browse along, you can just create an account. You don't have to pay for anything. You can see all the articles. If you're into recruiting, it's a great place to be. Join the message boards. It's a ton of fun. You never know what you're going to get. And then if you really want the behind the scenes content, what's really going on with this recruitment? Are we getting that 4-star? Join now and become a VIP. You can join right now for $1. $1. So highly recommend it. Best deal in the game. Check out VT Scoop.
A dollar can go a long way, Matej. I hope that dollar is also going on Jeff Overton and Zeke. Well, this is awesome, man. Thanks for coming on. Looking forward to seeing you in Blacksburg at some point this fall, and if not there, maybe New York City before the end of the year.
Oh yeah, maybe see you on Broadway in Nashville.
Oh, count on it.